Hey, what's up guys? Sir Emanon here, and welcome to another episode of Roach 1000 DuelingBook Grading. So this is going to be day 3 of my testing for Mekk-Knight Orcust. And if you guys haven't seen the previous episodes to this series, I would highly recommend checking those out. You can go ahead and find the link to the playlist in the top right corner. I'll leave a link in the card so you guys can get caught up if you haven't already. But before we get started, I do just want to quickly mention that I am actually on a new PC, so that's pretty exciting. But if you guys do notice any kind of errors or problems with the audio or any of the visual stuff, definitely do let me know in the comment section down below. I have tested everything and made sure that things were going smoothly on my end, but problems of course can come up, so just let me know if anything has gone awry in that department. But we are going to be up against Zoodiac Eldlich, and let's go ahead and just check out the minor changes to the build. And the first thing to point out here is, this World Wand. Let's go ahead and talk about this. So I'm recording this video on Wednesday night, and that's the same day that the second episode of Roach 1000 has launched, so I did get to read you guys' comments. But I played this match yesterday, which is Tuesday by the time you guys are seeing this, and at that point I did not make this change yet, but that actually did come to bite me in this match specifically. So we'll go ahead and just quickly mention that this will be at 2, but for the purposes of just staying honorable to what I actually played in this video, I did play 1. But again, that's not like something I talk about in depth here. Look forward to the deck profile, which will be coming out tomorrow by the time you guys see this. It should be on Saturday. I also changed some of the Orcust lineup here. I also decided to try DD Crow in the main deck. I took out Droplet because I just wanted to have more cards that required less resource investment, which is why I kind of went with this route instead and moved the Cosmics to the side. But that is pretty much it for the changes. It's not really anything too drastic in that regard. So let's go ahead and without further ado, just jump into the gameplay. So our opponent actually, I don't think you guys saw that, but my opponent did win the RPS and is choosing to go first. So our hand is Girsu, Skullmeister, Solemn Strike, Mekk-Knight Purple, and Ice Dragon's Prism. So very strong hand. We have traps going traps going first or second. I don't even know what happened there. But yeah, this is pretty nice just because they have a lot of high impact in various different matchups. A lot of people are questioning Ice Dragon's Prism, but I honestly think it's really strong in this format. It hits Eldlich, it hits Dino, and Zoo, which obviously are kind of like a little bit more in the fringes, but even against VW, it could still be good depending on when you anticipate like their Nian timings or their Lalo timings. You can really punish them. Also, even though it's not the best against Drytron, you still can hit like the Union Carrier, so you can banish Drytrons out. It's not fantastic, but it can still be decent. Also, a lot of the times they do properly summon a Ben 10, so you can capitalize on that as well for like their Union Carrier combo. So this card has application in pretty much every matchup, and it again is a high impact card. But we have a starter, we have stuff going second, so hand's pretty good. But opponent is going to start off by just setting 3 cards and passing, and I don't know the matchup obviously at this point, so we just kind of have to play it out and see what happens. We draw a copy of Rothschild's Memory Return, which is decent, but we already have access to our Mekk-Knight engine, so it's not the most valuable card. But that being said, we'll take it. It's another resource which we can use. So I'm going to go ahead and normal summon the copy of Girsu, and then activate its effect, after which it gets immediately Book-a-Mooned. So I'm thinking, alright, that's not too bad because actually we did hard draw the purple, which is not a Garnet by any means, but it's not usually the best card to see. But going second, it's amazing, obviously. So here we can use it to our utmost advantage. Something minor to kind of note here is that this Girsu maybe should be in a different zone, because traditionally I like to put things in the rightmost zone right now, just because Geonator Transverser kind of exists in the format, like Fringe in Drytron. But ultimately, because I'm playing a Mekk-Knight deck, or at least an engine, I should definitely be more mindful of the columns that my opponent is setting up, so should probably value that more and put it in the left column here, rather than just try and like get or play around like a very fringe Link 2. Something minor, but like those things can definitely add up. So we're going to go ahead and summon our copy of Purple here, and then use that effect that's going to target itself to add a copy of Blue Sky. So here I'm just trying to set up for next turn, potentially. I not only have the Purple coming back, so I can try for another Girsu next turn, but this can search a Girsu, and this Memory can get a copy of Purple, which can also get Girsu, so we got a lot of ways to get like follow-ups for next turn, so I'm not at all upset that this is booked right now. We're going to go ahead and summon the Blue Sky, to which that gets impermed. Not too upset about the column being turned off because it's just a trap that we're not going to use this turn anyway. And again, we have a lot of redundancy to the Girsu, so I'm not upset at all that my opponent decided to negate that. Here I use the Nightmare so I can try and like make an Orcust play, but that actually does get Skullmeistered. So here I'm just kind of forced to go into battle phase and attack for 2k. Now my opponent threw basically 3 interruptions into 2 cards, because the book and the Meister are effectively used on just one resource for me, being the Gyusu. And then the purple already did its job in that it's gonna, continually come back, and it already got me a resource. So the Imperm was pretty much free for me. So we got a lot of favorable trades. We still have 6 cards, and we're having another one coming back. And our opponent has 2. So we didn't lose anything, and our opponent lost 3 cards, basically. So we won out pretty favorably on this trade. We're going to go ahead and set our strike and our World Exceeds Memory in main phase 2, and then just pass our turn. Opponent in the end phase is going to flip up the Wakero, which telegraphs part of the matchup at least. Now I know at least they're on Eldlich, which is a pretty good thing for siding. Opponent is going to draw, and spoiler alert, is going to concede, so I'm just going to show my opponent's hand. It's a Ghost Bell and an Eldlich the Golden Lord, so even if my opponent was able to like link this away, set Scarlet, etc., I had way too much going on here. So my opponent just decides to pack this game up and go to game 2 here. So for siding purposes, we'll go ahead and show this off. So this was my kind of siding pattern for game number 2 specifically. This is pretty interesting because I did not know yet about the Zoodiac cards, of course. So I just kind of assumed it was like Dragoon Eldlich, and then prepared for that. So I really tried to kind of put a lot of Eldlich specific hate in here with the Cosmics, the back row wipes going second, being Feather Duster and like Pankratops, and then DD Crow just in case my opponent opens up really well. So that is kind of the idea there. I didn't put in the Heavy Storm Dusters. You could make an argument for that for sure, because this is going to be a slower matchup, so I will get chances to use it. But I opted to just kind of focus more on the go second cards specifically. So with that out of the way, let's just go ahead and go into game 2 here. If you guys are enjoying this commentary, definitely be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're new here and enjoy this series, this sort of progression, modern Yu-Gi-Oh progression, if you will. But yeah, our opponent's going to go and start off once again in game number 2. And our hand is looking considerably weaker. We have a copy of World Exceeds Memory, Ash, World Wand, Orcust Nightmare, and Skullmeister. Here is one of the games where opening this single copy of World Wand definitely mattered, and having the second one would have been very nice. If you guys remember the last episode against Dino, we opened this, but ended up not being a problem because, for one, our opponent scooped, but for another, we would have been able to just pitch it. But this is going to be a chance to demonstrate what happens if you can't get to Link 2 to pitch this out of hand, in which case you would want to have the second one. But our opponent's going to start with a copy of Tenki, and this is the first inclination of Zoos this entire match, so that's a good intel for me that I did not have previously on his build. Going to search for a copy of Thuriblade, and then here he's going to go and use the Thuriblade effect to pitch and draw 1, so it's obviously correct not to Ash Tenki there, but that just kind of confirms that he already had the name, so it would have been even worse. But yeah, this is going to be saved pretty much exclusively for Scarlet, because I feel that this engine can do a pretty good job of outgrinding the Zoo portion, but the Eldritch portion might be a bit of a struggle. So that's why I was thinking, all right, I'm actually kind of glad I sided more for the Eldritch part, and I saw only Eldritch as opposed to only Zoo, because if I saw only Zoo, I would have sided differently, and it would have made this matchup potentially even more unfavorable for me. So my opponent's going to go into Hammer Kong, and go Borbo, and then Trident, and then set a couple cards and pass. We draw another Ash. Unfortunate, because we, I guess, could have used it then on the Tenki, but, just want to make the right play, and that just happens to be a matter of misfortune. So we're going to go into main phase 1, and here I make kind of a questionable decision that we can talk about. So I decide to actually normal summon the Skullmeister. Now, why do I do this? So this Trident is currently on 17 because of the Tenki. So my thought process is I want to crash into it, or at least force the Trident. That way I can use memory to use purple without purple being hit by Trident. Because the ultimate goal is to get a starter, since this hand literally has no starters. And if my only play in purple gets stopped, then I will not be able to literally play the game at all. So there could have been a couple different ways. I could have maybe opted to do this differently, where I use the memory to summon Gyusu, and then just have an Orcust name or a World Legacy name sitting in graveyard, and then either the Gyusu returns to my hand or it just pops it, because this does lock you into Mekk-Knights for the rest of the turn, which is kind of the tricky thing about it. So I won't be able to like use Gyusu's token summoning effect or like use the Orcust. Well, I mean, I could use whatever Orcust I send, as long as it's not Brass, or like World Wand, for example, if I played a duplicate. But yeah, I won't be able to get very far. So either the Gyusu comes back to hand for next turn, or he pops it, and I'll still have like names. So that's like one thing I could have done. But I also could have done like the purple and then just gone all the way to the end phase. It does summon in defense position, so it's not like I could force Trident into battle phase here with this. But I could have also maybe just gone to the end phase, see if he pops Trident, or pops it with Trident. If he tries to, then I can just chain the purple and get Gyusu. If he doesn't, then purple would just come back to hand and I could try again next turn. I think of all those options, it might have been the best to just try and summon Gyusu straight up, as weird as that might sound, because it'll guarantee that I'll still have at least like some Orcust play for the follow-up, which is, you know, fairly decent as opposed to literally nothing that I have here. So that is something to certainly know. Also, a cool thing maybe I could have done, I actually literally just thought of this, is that I could summon Gyusu and send Symbol, because if he pops it, that means next turn I could just Symbol back the Gyusu. And if he doesn't pop it, then I just have another normal summon. So I think that actually, looking back, is the right play. I actually literally just thought of this, even though I looked at this replay before recording. So you learn something new every time you go through a match. But that whole tangent aside, I think that was a big important tangent, so I'm not too upset about talking and going out of my way for that one, because this probably was a turning point in the match, or one of the turning points. I think there's 3 of them in this match that we can go over. But yeah, Skullmeister, I go ahead and try and attack. He's obviously going to use Trident, and I'm okay with that. Going to use the memory here, and then use this all in battle phase just in case he's playing Valor. Valor is not really being played anymore, but just, you know, just in case. Going to use the purple now unhindered and grab the Gyusu for next turn. And then here, again, I'm pretty confident that I'm not dying, especially because I have Ash for the Sanguine here. So I feel pretty decent because it is a Zoo, and they have difficulties OTKing for the most part. My opponent draws another copy of Tenki, and I'm like, that's fine. I think I still save this Ash for the residual copies of Scarlet, or maybe even a Cursed Eldwind, because he's already playing the Zoo cards, right? So, I mean, my thought process was like, what's another Zoo name really going to get him here? So he searches a copy of Ram, and then normals it, goes into Shakanite, and I'm like, wait, is he going to actually like go for a Megaclops? And I'm just thinking, there's no way, but he actually did. And this was super surprising to me, because not only does Zoo Eldlich traditionally just not play this card anymore, or like even Zoo in general, just because like there's so many traps in this format, but I'm also playing Dingirsu, which is just such a clean out to this, and he knows I'm on Orcust cards because of game 1, so I was super surprised that he just went for the Megaclops, and I was thinking, oh, this is great, because now he just straight up doesn't have a Trident. There's nothing for him to steal to bring it back, and he got rid of a disruption basically for me, in exchange for dealing more damage, which put me on a timer for sure, but I felt much more confident than it was before. He's going to use the Scarlet in main phase 2 to set a copy of the Wakero, and then pass turn from there. We draw a copy of Gizmic, which is definitely going to be relevant. Now, here is kind of the second turning point of this match that I want to highlight. Well, not right now, but this turn. So we're going to go ahead and bring back the purple in the standby phase. And then I want to actually use it right away, because the goal is to kind of use Gyusu's token generation effect with my board clear. So I search up blue, even though I have literally no other back row to use it with. And the reason is that I just want like extra cards I can maybe use later down the line. Like if I can perhaps set a Crescendo, I could also set up a column like later on. Obviously, it's gonna be hard to use, you know, Orcust and then some of this afterward after resolving Galatea, but you get the idea. Is that like I can set this up later on, and I would have a Gyusu, right? And with this coming back every turn, getting a Gyusu is not an issue. So right here, we're in main phase now, and I decide to normal summon this copy of Gyusu. And then I use that effect and send a copy of Bombard. Now, this was perhaps greedy on my end. So my idea was, okay, we can use Gyusu, summon some tokens, and then we can like use Phoenix to pitch the wand, and then force a back row, see what happens. And then Brass, banish, summon Nightmare, and then go like Galatea. And then if that gets stopped, we also have Wand to like bring back the Brass, or like we can Nightmare send Symbol and like do all this crazy stuff, right? But there is one key card that I don't account for, and that is Ice Dragon's Prism. Card is very, very strong, and that's one that I definitely should have seen coming. Even though we didn't see it in game one, it's reasonable to assume that this would be in the lineup because this card's really popular at the moment. So yeah, that's something I should have absolutely counted for because now that cuts off a lot of my options that I was relying on to get out of my hand. Because this is the case where I didn't have the second wand in my deck, so that wasn't an option for me. But if I had the second wand, that would have made this Ice Dragon's Prisoner a lot more difficult because the wand is going to trigger, it's going to summon itself, or summon the other copy from my hand rather, and then now I'll have two bodies where like he'll either be tempted to use it here just to prevent like another body from hitting the board, and then I can just Gizmek and then still play because then I could like wand back the brass and then link away the brass and then summon out Nightmare and do the whole play anyways, which would have been great. Or, you know, like my opponent would have to wait in Ice Dragon's Prison for a later point, at which point, you know, like if my opponent uses it like any later, it might be too late. So yeah, having the second wand there would have been very, very good for sure. Like it would have made playing through this a lot easier. So this is like kind of a lesson in deck building more than anything. Is that like this kind of thing can really showcase certain cards that might come up in a build. But yeah, that hits the brass and the Girsu. So now I'm left with a lot fewer options than I would have had previously. And this was like, I see now what's wrong with this build. And I realized this actually before I even read the comments on Wednesday's video. But yeah, that kind of just like solidified everything. So yeah, this is why we're going to be playing two of this in the deck profile. But yes, this is not looking too good now because I have options, aka do I summon Gizmek or do I not? If I summon it, he can take it with the Mega Clops, even though it will reduce the damage. But like I didn't really want this to be taken right away. I want to at least fade the battle phase. So I just go ahead and pass. My opponent uses the Walk Arrow and then draws for turn, goes right into the battle phase. I just use the Gizmek right here. And then he's just going to go ahead and use Mega Clops in main phase 2, opting to not attack into it, obviously, just so that the Gizmek is not ever in graveyard. He's going to put the Trident in this zone specifically, link the Walk Arrow into a Link Spider, and then go to end phase and not use a Walk Arrow because if he does, then he'll play into the Blue Sky, which he knows is in my hand. So this is going to be the next turn. We draw a copy of Cosmic, which is not great as like in and of itself, but it's good in that we can finally set up this Blue Sky. So purple comes back into standby phase, and then here I'm trying to just like bait out Trident as best as I can. Here I use purple, targeting itself, and I'm like asking like if I say like target itself because it doesn't banish for cost. So I'm thinking, all right, if he uses Trident to target it to get it off the board, then I'm like, that's great. Then I can use Blue Sky to kind of keep going. But my opponent realizes and smartly recognizes that I have the Blue Sky in hand, so I'm more than likely getting to Girsu regardless. So he's just going to save this for a later point. So Girsu is going to be added to my hand, and then I go ahead and enter main phase and activate the Girsu effect. And then I send another copy of Nightmare here because like my only options left are Nightmare Symbol. And yeah, I mean like at that point it doesn't matter that much. But again, if I had another or access to World Wand, here's another case where it would have been pretty decent. The last turn, like maybe I would have possibly still gone for this brass, even if I had Wand in my deck, because like I would have been able to use the token generation effect, and that would have like been really good like against what I thought was just no or not much disruption. But here, like the Wand definitely would have been like categorically the correct call if I had it. Here he's gonna use Trident to pop my Girsu. And now I'm like, this is not a good spot. Like, it's not horrible, but like I have to kind of make a stand now because I recognize that if I don't win this game or like break his board and then make my own to the point where he can't come back from it, then I'm probably just losing next turn. So I set Cosmic, go ahead and go for the Blue Sky, use that effect, and then add a copy of purple to hand. This is again kind of weird because I can like try and clear the zone when I go for a link play and then summon the purple. But I also want to use my Orcust stuff too, which obviously is going to lock me out of dark or out of non-darks. So here I use a Orcust Nightmare, and then I get Skullmeister, and I'm thinking, wow, that's super unfortunate because think about it. If this was a World Legacy World Wand, it has two graveyard effects. So Meister actually would have been really interesting because he would either like Meister the World Wand Grave Effect to summon this one from hand, which if he did, that's totally fine because then I just get back Brass. Or he negates the one where I get back Brass, in which case I have this extra body on the board and I have much more stuff to work with. So at the end of the day, having the second wand here is the reason. Like this is the reason why it's like, yeah, second wand definitely needs to be in this build. Here I activate Gizmic as kind of a last ditch effort. The goal is to go Gizmic, barricade the wand, and then try and just make some last ditch effort. But we get DD Crowed. So yeah, he had all the answers for this given particular game state, and I can't really say if I misplayed rather than misdeck built, right? The mistakes came from the deck building. It's all if I had World Wand, a second World Wand in my deck, this would have not happened. Like the outcome would have been different. But given the cards I had access to and the cards I had in my deck, I'm not sure what I could have done differently. You guys can definitely go ahead and let me know if there's anything that sticks out to you guys. But this is just a matter of my deck building choice being incorrect. So that is ultimately why we end up losing this game. So that is going to be it for game number 2. A pretty good lesson in that regard, and that is why we play test and just check for these kinds of things. But here's the siding going into game 3. I decided to keep in the Cosmics, but I deviate a little bit. I put back in a couple copies of Strike to contend with the Zoo engine, but I also want like wide coverage, so the siding looks a little bit weird, and I'm not sure if it's 100% correct, to be honest. But I'm going first, so I want stuff to kind of deal with the Eldlich engine and also stuff to deal with the Zoo stuff. So I want to just have like the maximum variety of coverage here. You could argue that like Torrential could still be decent, but I'd rather just have Strike for like the Zoo stuff specifically. So that is it for the game 3 sighting. And now we're going to move into said game 3. We're going to be opting to go first here. And our opener is Symbol, Ash, Ice Dragon's Prison, World Legacy's Memory, and Cosmic Cyclone. So not a very good hand, unfortunately. This is where I'm thinking, all right, maybe, like, do I use this memory or do I not use this, right? Because there's a case where maybe I could, like, use this here. Because, spoiler alert, I don't. I could use it, summon purple, and then grab Girsu, and then summon it and send something and just pass on that. I didn't feel that was great, but maybe I should have done it just because, like, it gets me started to turn faster. So that would have been something to consider. But I go ahead and just set a couple cards and set the symbol instead, with the thought process being I could get started a turn later, and it wouldn't be ultimately that detrimental because I would have just another like purple coming back. But again, like purple would come back if I did this on my own turn anyways, so probably should have just actually used this. Kind of not really seeing a reason now to hold it. Just kind of talking it through a bit more. Like my intuition was to set it just to have like more defensive cards, like to play reactively on his turn. But like if you think about it, like if you really sit down and kind of just think about it, there's not really a point into doing that. Like just use it. So my opponent starts off with a copy of Cursed Eldwind, and then I'm going to just Cosmic that. That is a card that definitely immediately outgrinds me if it stays on the board for too long. So that's one that I can't let go. He's going to go and Third Blade next, and he's using the effect. I'm like, all right, that's cool, actually, because now it turns on my Ice Dragon's Prison, so I am very happy with that. He's going to draw off of that and then go for Hammer Kong into Tiger. And then when he goes to use Tiger effect, I just use the Ice Dragon's Prison in response, banish the Tiger and the Ram Ram. And I'm like, okay, well, these aren't the best trades. They're just 1-for-1s, but it's not bad as long as I can resolve the memory in the end phase, right? He sets 3, and then I activate Warlock's memory in the end phase, but the last card in his hand is Ash. And we'll go over if that was in his starting hand or if he drew it for turn / off the Third Blade afterward. Because there's a case where like if this was like if that did happen, then not using the memory in my own turn was absolutely punished, and that would be another like even more of a reason to have done it. But even in the case of like whether it happened or not, I still think in principle I should have just used this on my own turn. So that's a misplay that I made this turn. Or this game, rather. Luckily, we do top deck a copy of Scrap Recycler, which is decent. Like, very good in the fact that, I just don't have a play right now. So, we're now able to just normal summon it, hope that it resolves. it doesn't. It gets impermed. So now I'm thinking, all right, well, let's try and make like a really awkward play. So I flip up this copy of Symbol, and then I go for Galatea. And then my mindset is like, all right, if I can go Ding to send, battle phase attack, go into Zeus. That's like a decent line. Even though we're against Eldlich, but like it'll be enough defense. And then I can start going like Symbol to revive my stuff. And that will end up being valuable in the long term. But my opponent has Ice Dragon's Prison again. So now all my resources are kind of just banished and we are forced to just pass. My opponent has the Scarlet, but I have the Ash. So we literally both have no cards, but my opponent is favored because he's on Eldlich. So that is not very good for me, especially when he top decks a copy of Curse Eldland. That is very bad now. So even though he's not going to get another like interruption this turn, like he's one turn away from just running away with the game. So he's going to use the Scarlet, set the Conquistador, and then pass. So this is the last turn I have basically without interruption. So this top deck needs to be something really good. It needs to be like an Armageddon Knight or a Scrap Recycle or a Girsu or just something to help get my play started. It is not. It is a Solemn Strike, so that is unfortunate. We're just going to have to set it and pass and hope that we can somehow survive, but the game basically is over at this point. We're going to take 1800 damage, then go for... He's going to go for the Link Spider, and then he's going to use Wakero, go for the Scarlet as well. He actually didn't use the Curse Eldland this turn, I just noticed. I don't think. Yeah. But again, like, we're so far behind now, because now I know that he has a Conquistador to disrupt me. We draw Foolish, which is, like, fine, because we can World Wand back, like, Galatea and try and play. But, yeah, it's not going to happen, because we get World Wand to bring back Gal, but he has he either had Conch or he had this, which is Ice Dragon's Prison. And from here, we have lost the match. So what have we learned here? We learned that in game 2, that was essentially all down to deck building, basically, where at a lot of stages in the game, if I had access to another copy of World Wand, it would have gone differently. Not necessarily like enough to categorically say that I would have won that game, but it would have made things a lot easier for me to navigate through his specifically Ice Dragon's Prison. And then also like maybe the play with the Skullmeister was a little bit misguided, where I could have used the Warrior Legacy's Memory instead, and then just gone for the various lines, like testing the waters, if you will. Again, I think the best play probably actually would have been Memory to go Girsu and then send Symbol. That probably would have been the best play in that game. And then in this game, what happened was this should have been used, but let's go ahead and check out the logs actually, because I did promise you guys I would check that out. So what happened here, where is the start of game number 3? Give me a moment to find it. Where is it? All right, so that was previously. That's the one thing with these logs, is that they're really hard to kind of like locate. All right, so yeah, we drew these cards, and our opponent had the Ash the whole time. So my opponent could have just Ashed, which means that like the World Legacy Memory play would have gotten stopped regardless. But that doesn't justify not doing it that way, right? Because like there was no reason to just hold it there. Since I didn't have a play, I should have just used it and then gotten access to my Girsu if like it did resolve, and then that would have just made things a lot easier down the road for me. Like, yeah, I wouldn't have like gotten anywhere as far as accomplishing like resources, you know what I mean? But this isn't a disruption either. So it's not like I'm losing out on disruption cards, especially when I don't already have a play. Like if I have a like Girsu or Scrap Recycler with this, obviously I'm not going to be using this. But if this is the only play, then I should be using this on my own turn. So that's kind of the fatal error that I made. Although my opponent would have had the game, I think would have gone the same direction because he opened Ash to begin with. So it's like from a comfort point of view, it's like, oh, he had it anyway, right? And it's easy to fall into the trap where it's like, oh, that means that I didn't misplay, right? But no, I did misplay, right? Because in the case where he didn't have Ash, activating the memory there would have mattered because he could have drawn this for turn, he could have drawn it off the Third Blade, and that could have become the same dynamic that actually happened in the game, except with kind of a different means behind it, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, this is kind of me rambling on a lot, but I really like analyzing and dissecting my misplays as well. And it's been a while since I've had a defeat in the series, so I'm kind of glad to have one here just because it's good to just look at this and kind of review the mistakes from all elements of the game that I make because, here to demonstrate that I'm not a perfect player by any means, but I'm definitely willing to accept criticism, take misplays into account, and use them to better my own gameplay. And hopefully this will help you guys too. This is a way that you guys can help analyze your own games because I look at things in a very, very sharp microscope. As you can obviously tell, I looked at very, very small details here. So that's kind of the things I enjoy doing. I just like looking at this and being like, wow, I'm terrible. I did this horrible. And then that's how you learn and just don't make those mistakes again. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the deck profile, which will come out tomorrow. And I will be featuring 2 copies of World Wand. But yeah, if you guys want to know the specific insights, if you enjoy this level of depth, I'll be applying it to the deck list itself. So be on the lookout for that. It'll be out tomorrow by the time you guys see this. But thanks, guys, for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like as well as any thoughts or feedback in the comments. Subscribe for more informative and competitive video content. If you want to, you can follow me on all social media platforms or support me via Patreon or TCG Player. All the links in the description as usual. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. See you guys.